We're recording now.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Panessa. I hereby call the regular meeting of the Administrative Appeals Board of September 28th, 2022 to order. Anybody that's just
You muted yourself, Mike.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I will start over. Luckily, I didn't get very far. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Panessa. I am the chair of the Administrative Appeals Board, and I hereby call the regular meeting of the Administrative Appeals Board of September 28th, 2022 to order. Board Secretary, can you please conduct the roll call?
She's on mute.
Cassie, you are muted.
I'm sorry about that. I have board member Patrick Basayo. Is that how you say your last name? You're muted.
Present.
Thank you. Board member Ken Hedrick.
Here.
Board member Stephen Moses.
Here.
Board member Wayne Sinclair.
Here.
And Chair Michael Panessa.
Here, thank you. So the first item on the agenda is the acceptance of this agenda. The board can discuss and may amend the order of the agenda. And I'd like to entertain a motion and a second for acceptance of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Board Secretary, can you please call the vote? You're
She's on
muted.
mute.
Monique, I'm not sure what that means.
Cassie, you're muted. Cassie, you are muted still.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm calling. I haven't done this before. There you go.
So
I'm sorry.
we have
I was
a
muted.
motion
Board
and a
member
second.
Moses.
We have a motion and a second to accept the agenda. So if you could call the vote.
Board member Moses.
Aye.
Board member Hedrick.
Aye.
Board member Sinclair.
Aye.
Board member Basili.
Aye.
Chair Panessa.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is public comment. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address this board on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of this board. 3 minutes will be assigned to any speaker. And although the board, of course, values your comments, pursuant to the Brown Act, the board generally cannot take any action on any items not listed on the posted agenda. Testimony for the hearings will only be taken at the time of those specific hearings. Board Secretary, is there anybody that wishes from the public that wishes to speak?
We have no registered speakers. If there's anyone in the room at the time who'd like to speak, you can do so now. Please start by stating your name.
And
Cassandra, do we have any hands raised in the chat?
No, I don't have any
It
hands
doesn't
raised.
sound like.
Nobody's messaged in there.
Okay, great.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Cassie's new. May we have her introduce herself and tell us what her position is?
Certainly. Cassie, would you like to just take a moment and introduce yourself, please?
It's vertical.
Hi, everyone. I am the new Deputy City Clerk in the clerk's office, assisting Brent and Monique and the team here.
Thank you. Welcome. All right, we're gonna dive right in. The next item, number 3 on the agenda, is an appeal of the permanent ban and administrative fine of $5,000 concerning, and I apologize if I say your name wrong, Ednoy Hassani, and the property at 3530 Eastgate North Road. Board Secretary, can you please ensure that the city staff and the appellant understand that their testimony is under oath?
City staff and appellants and any others who choose to speak under this appeal hearing, by choosing to speak, you hereby accept that anything you say shall be the truth and the whole truth. Please begin your statements by stating your name.
All right, I saw a bunch of thumbs up, so we're gonna move on. At this time, I'd like to ask for the staff to present their report.
Yes, good evening, board, chair, board members, city staff, appellants on the call, general public on the call this evening. My name is Patrick Clifford with the Department of Special Program Compliance. We oversee the vacation rental program with the city of Palm Springs. Before you this evening is a staff report for the property located at 3530 Northeast Gate Road here in Palm Springs. It was determined that this property was operated as a vacation rental without a vacation rental certificate, with the elements that are listed in your staff report numbered 1, 2, and 3. The code officer's investigation did find that there was an inquiry submitted to the city providing a reservation confirmation, which also included a confirmation number and a dollar amount that was associated with that stay. And additionally, we did find advertisements from the short-term platform. Additionally, the code officer that investigated the property is on the call this evening, and I would invite the code officer to provide further testimony regarding the investigation. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Good evening, members of the board, fellow city staff, and members of the public joining us on the call tonight. My name is Mitch Nabhan. I'm a code compliance supervisor for the city of Palm Springs and was the officer that issued the citation AB 0383 to the property owner on May 9th, 2022. On Sunday, May 8th, 2022, I received a report detailing a possible violation for unregistered vacation rental activity at 3530 North Eastgate Road via the City of Palm Springs Vacation Rental Inquiry Request Form that's available to the public on the city's vacation rental website, which is included in the staff report as attachment 5. On Monday, May 9th, 2022, the following day, I contacted the reporting party to discuss the situation surrounding their complaint and confirm the details related to their booked short-term stay and the reported address. They also provided information related to the advertisement, which I was able to locate via Airbnb.com shortly after, and confirmed that the property was being advertised as vacation rental with a minimum stay of 2 nights. The Airbnb ad is included in the staff report as attachment 6. Taking into account the information provided by the reporting party, as well as my findings via the Airbnb platform, it was determined that the property located at 3530 North Eastgate Road was being both advertised and operating short-term stays without a valid vacation rental certificate. Apologies. I issued the citation to the property owner listed on title as Adonis Hassani for a violation of PSMC 5.25.040A, and it was sent via mail to the address listed on the property title. Additionally, it should be noted that as of today, actually I logged onto the advertisement just before getting onto the call. The advertisement is still active and appears to be accepting short-term bookings with a minimum 2-night stay as well. Same findings as back in May. There are also 15 additional reviews since the time of the citation being issued in May, bringing the total to 20 reviews from the original 5 that I had found when I issued the site. These supporting documents were added as an additional item by the city clerk's office this morning. This includes 10 separate reviews that were posted in July and August 2022. which is significant because these were posted after the appeal was received by Mr. Hassani on June 16th, 2022, as shown in attachment 3. The evidence suggests that even if the property owner was initially unaware of the short-term rental activity, as they've stated in their appeal, the rental activity continued through the summer and the property is still available to this day to be rented short-term. So that will conclude what I have to present, and I'm available to answer any related questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the city?
Yes, Chair, thank you. I do have one additional. Additional items was submitted as well on top of the advertisements. We did provide a tenant lease that was provided by the appellant today. There are some rare occasions where we've issued a citation to a homeowner and it turns out that a tenant was the one actually operating the vacation rental without the property owners knowing this. The lease that was provided, though, we did want to provide to you and have this discussion this evening because the term dates might have a typo and such. The fixed lease term dates that was provided in a lease shows April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2022. Like I said, that could be a typo, but with that, didn't feel comfortable making a decision to issuing a citation to the tenant and wanted the opportunity to bring this forward to the board. That's all I have this evening on this matter. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we'll open it up to the board members to ask questions of the city. Why don't we start with Mr. Basili?
I'm just a little confused. Was there a lease? You said there was a lease agreement. And how long was that lease agreement for, did you say?
Yes, thank you. So that's where I think there might have been a typo. It states in the document that it was April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2022. I'm thinking that should be March 31st, 2023, which would have been a year lease. But with it still saying 2022, we just wanted to bring it forward to the board.
So are you assuming that it was the tenant that was doing the short-term rental and not the actual homeowner?
If this lease is valid and that was a typo, we would assume that it was the tenant doing the subletting of the property. And in other past cases, we would get a statement from the property owner certifying this, and then we would void that citation to the owner and issue the citation to the tenant at that time.
Great, thank you. I have no other questions.
Mr. Sinclair?
Where's McMitch? The advertisement, who's the person you're supposed to respond to in the advertisement? If I were to answer it, who was the person that you responded to?
So the advertisement is hosted by an individual that's identified themselves on the Airbnb platform as Aaron De Assis, which doesn't match up with the property owner on title. It is a different name.
And in those extra rentals after the citation, did anybody follow up to the home to see who was there or whether and ask perhaps who they rented from?
So we did not. So we did not receive any additional active nuisance disturbance complaints emanating from that property. And I don't see any record of any proactive inspections having taken place there either.
And checking today was just a standard follow-up before the hearing.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Hedrick?
I'm sorry, I missed the lease. Is the lease name is the same person as the contact name on the Airbnb?
No, it's not. The tenant's name on the lease is a Gabriela Ortiz.
And we don't know if Gabrielle is related to the contact person.
We do know.
Thank
Anything
you.
else, Mr. Hedrick?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moses.
Nothing.
Okay, so I just want to be clear on my part, Officer Haban, sorry, Nabhan. So according to what you're seeing on the site, which site is it, by the way? Is it Airbnb, VRBO, some other site?
It's Airbnb.
Okay, so what you're seeing is the citation was issued on date A. The owner of the property appealed that citation on date B, and you were seeing reservations, you were seeing reviews from after not only the citation, but after the appeal was filed. So there's no way the owner would have known or would have not have known that this was an issue.
Correct. So generally, before we come on to do present our appeals cases, we'll follow up on the ads to see if there was a substantial differential in the amount of reviews for a property that we have found that's operated unregistered. Oftentimes, once they get the citation, the advertisement comes down, and we don't really suspect them of operating. In this instance, while I was doing my due diligence this morning, I did notice that the advertisement was still up, and the review count increased with those dates mentioned, pretty much consistent from the time that I had issued the citation. So the date on the appeals form that was submitted by the homeowner was received by the city and stamped on June 16th. So if they hadn't known up until that point, really from then on, the reviews kind of demonstrate that there was rental activity beyond that, at least with the way that the Airbnb platform works. So it does look like the evidence suggests that the owner was at least aware of short-term rental operations at a certain point beyond June 16th up until now. And like I said, the advertisement that's hosted by Aaron, whatever his affiliation is with the property, is still active right now. I still have it up.
Okay. And then Patrick, I guess this is for you. Well, I'm not sure. Because one of my first thoughts was that, well, maybe somebody else had placed this ad, but then the reviews, and it was fraud, but then the reviews would reflect that, that situation. And it sounds like, from reading these reviews, people are talking about how clean it was, that it was remodeled, communication was good. So these are clearly people had stayed there. Is that fair?
Can
let them answer me, please?
Yeah, I mean, it does show that there was some kind of activity, especially with statements like it was clean and situations like that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moses?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe I'm jumping ahead, but the lease agreement we've got obviously has a typo because it begins after it ends. It probably is meant to be, and probably is being used as April 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2023. And therefore, the person doing all this activity is a long-term lessor of the property. Now, that doesn't mean that person hasn't violated the law, but the landlord has not had occupancy or control of the property since April 1st. And while this is all continuing, it's continuing by the tenant doing it.
So, Mr. Moses, that Patrick was explaining to us that had there not been the typo on the lease, they would have canceled the citation and issued it to the tenant. But because of the typo, they didn't.
Yeah, I understand, but do we act on typos or what it's intended? The clear, and maybe I'm ahead of myself, the clear intention of this lease is for that person who's blacked out, there's a name here, Adonis Hassani, that person occupies.
That's the landlord.
Okay, I'm sorry, Gabriela Ortiz.
So, all right, so let's, if you don't mind, let's save that for our discussion.
One more question to Patrick.
Certainly.
Patrick, has the transient occupancy tax been paid?
They would not have a transient occupancy tax number to pay for it. Yeah.
Right, just wanted to confirm.
All right, if there are no more questions for the city, at this time, I'd like to open the appeal hearing. The appellant will be invited to speak for up to 10 minutes. Any member of the public who desires to speak on this appeal hearing shall have up to 3 minutes to speak. And if a member of the public chooses to speak on this case, the appellant will be invited to speak for an additional 2-minute rebuttal. Board Secretary, can you please begin the public testimony period?
She's muted.
This morning.
Hi, I'm here. Do we have any members of the public? Or actually, you're asking for the appellant testimony. I'm sorry. Is the appellant present in the room? Mr. Pisani? Chair Panessa, I don't see the appellant listed.
All right, and is there anyone else that wanted to speak on this case from the public?
I have no registered speakers and I don't see any hands raised in the room.
All right, thank you very much. With that, we will close the public testimony portion, and the next, this time now is set aside for the board to discuss what we have heard from one side and no one from the other side. Mr. Hedrick, do you want to go first?
Yes. How in the application for the appeal, the owner said he's trying to evict a tenant. I'm not familiar with the eviction laws here. How difficult is it to evict somebody from a rental property? I know in San Francisco and New York, that takes years. But in Palm Springs, is it that difficult?
The law is the state law and not the city. So what you know about San Francisco is comparable to what you know about Palm Springs.
Okay, so once the person is in there, the homeowner is sort of stuck.
He can be evicted, but it's a process that starts with about 120-day delay and then other issues, and can go a long way without actually being heard. But and as long as I'm talking sort of out of turn, the issue here isn't for an eviction. Or maybe it is based on violating this law. The issue here is the lease. The lease has got a typo, but the lease clearly intends that the tenant is the occupant and the tenant is the person who's doing these steps and is responsible, not the owner.
So I'm going to interject here. Patrick, if regardless of how we vote on this one, if this ad stays up, they continue to rent, would the subsequent fines go to the tenant or the owner?
You know, I think at this point, since, you know, I'm not really concerned, what I'm trying to say is that lease that was provided an accurate lease for it, we would probably just continue issuing a citation to the property owner. To hope maybe construct some dialogue to get an edited lease or appropriate contact information that who's at that property. And we would probably want to tie up by working with the owner who that person is on the advertisement on the host, which is different from the person that's the tenant on lease. But, you know, hopefully if we have to go and further issue citations to the property owner, maybe that will then spur additional conversation.
Okay, so it's undetermined. Mr. Hedrick?
And one other question, under our statute, who is responsible? Is it the homeowner or the person leasing the property?
I can answer that. under the violations section, when we're talking about operating without a vacation registration certificate, it just says any person. So, typically it's the responsible party, which would be the owner. But like Patrick mentioned, sometimes the city does issue them against if there's a long-term tenant in there that is doing the short term, then that would be considered a person. So the statute would allow either the owner or another person, including a long-term tenant that's operating as a short term.
So what you're saying is that it always boils down to the owner.
I'm saying that a long-term tenant could also be cited. The statute says that it's any person who operates. Typically it's the owner, but sometimes, as Patrick mentioned, when there's long-term leases, sometimes the long-term tenant will be issued the citation.
Okay. Patrick, I have one more question for you. Has the owner been working with you to help you contact the tenant?
Yeah, great questions. So when we at first received his appeal back in the summer, that appellant reached out, and when I read that appeal, it stated that he had a tenant. So we reached out to him. I talked to him on the phone and said, if you had a tenant there, please provide the lease. And that was back in the summer, I think August. And I didn't hear anything from him until yesterday when he contacted the city clerk and then was asking about that he had a tenant. And then we said, can you please provide the lease? So the lease wasn't provided until yesterday, but he was well aware that we were looking for the lease since the summer, and there was no conversation between then and yesterday.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sinclair, any discussion?
Well, yeah, I think something's not right here. And I don't think everybody's being honest. And I don't think, without his testimony, I don't think the owner's being honest. I can't remember, it says somewhere in here that, this was a month to month and he got rid of the tenant. And we see that he obviously knew that it was being rented all summer. And why wasn't something done to try to remedy that? Whether that gets you to court to get an eviction notice because someone's renting your place in violation of city laws. We don't know the relationship between the tenant and the owner and the tenant and the person renting. And I just think, I'm just very, very skeptical about this whole thing. And I'm not very sympathetic at all to any of the parties here.
I'd like to make a motion that we.
Wait, hang on, Mr. Moses. We've still got Mr. Basili gets a chance to speak.
Wait time.
Thank you. So I have to agree with Mr. Sinclair that there's so many issues with this lease, including the signature page, which could have easily been, you've got a signature and then you've got a typed in date, which does happen a lot of times, but I find that's kind of suspicious. And then the other thing is the dates on the lease itself. Yes, it could have been a mistake, but most people would have caught it. And so I have a problem with this lease as well. And I think overall, I think everyone is, there's too many parties involved that we don't know who's renting. And there's a difference in the name on the contact person for the Airbnb. There's a different name on the lease, and then there's the owner. And there's too many people involved. And I think it's just personally, I think it's a scam.
So thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Basili.
Yeah, and that's it, nothing else.
Okay. So I'm actually glad, Mr. Sinclair, you said what you said, because frankly, I was feeling the exact same way. I feel like if this owner had taken this seriously, if he can't get the person evicted, at a minimum, he could contact Airbnb and say, I have this property that's being advertised on Airbnb. I'm the owner. They would have pulled the ad down. So it seems to me like, yes, this lease seems kind of suspicious, but I'm not getting the sense, and with this person not showing up to this hearing, I'm not getting the sense that A, they're taking this seriously, or anything's being done about this. And clearly it's still being rented. So with that being said, Mr. Moses, you wanted to make a motion.
Yeah, I think we have too many ifs and ands here that I would suggest we postpone this for a month and ask the owner to answer the questions you've just been stating. And let's understand whether there really is a lease and there really is a tenant. And if so, it's not the landlord's, despite what Ms. Tremblay advised, it would not be the landlord, it would be the tenant who would be, or in my judgment, would be responsible.
Okay, so Mr. Moses has made a motion. I want to offer a competing motion. And my competing motion is that we uphold the fine and the ban. Because I'm not seeing things that tell me that the owner's the victim here.
I think
second
under
Mr.
parliament
Fennessy.
procedure, we need to vote on Steve's first and then vote on yours.
Okay, so do we have a second for Mr. Moses's?
Mine fails for lack of a second.
Okay, so I have presented a competing motion. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so Board Secretary, if you could call the vote, the motion is to uphold the ban and the fine.
Chair Panessa,
Aye.
Board Member Hedrick,
Aye.
Board Member Basili,
Aye.
Board Member Moses.
I'd like to abstain.
Okay, Board Member Sinclair,
Aye.
motion carries 4-0 with one abstention.
All right, I want to thank everyone for their time and effort on this case. I will tell you as an aside, it is very disturbing to me when somebody appeals and then doesn't show up. So, but we are going to move on to the next case.
And I would also assume, Patrick, that you're going to continue to follow up with the situation at this place.
Yeah, if there's continued advertisement, I mean, that's a violation of the ordinance, and we'll take the next step in continuation citations, and then if the kid's going from that, go for the legal action with the city attorney.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. So the next item is number 4 on the agenda, concerning the property at 2232 East Hildeby Lane, is an appeal of the $5,000 fine and administrative decision that Paul Graziano is permanently ineligible to operate a vacation rental in the city of Palm Springs. Board Secretary, can you please ensure that the city staff and the appellant understand that their testimony is under oath?
City staff, appellants, and any other individual who desires to testify under this appeal hearing under the laws of perjury. If you choose to speak, you hereby accept and acknowledge that your testimony shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please
I do.
begin your testimony by stating your name.
All right. Thank you. Paul, I'm sorry. We will, first, the city will present their case, and then there will be time specifically for you.
My
Okay.
apologies. I thought to state my name.
Oh, you're fine. Don't worry. Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask for the city report.
Yes, good evening, Chair, board members, city staff, appellants, public on the call this evening. My name is Patrick Clifford with the Department of Special Program Compliance here in the city of Palm Springs, and we oversee the vacation rental compliance portion of our ordinance within the city. Before you this evening as a staff report regarding the property located at 2232 East Hildeby Lane here in Palm Springs. It was found that this property was advertised as a vacation rental and an investigation by code compliance confirmed using the elements that was found in your staff reports, numbered 1, 2, and 3. And a citation was issued on May 31st, 2022. Additionally, some background into this case is that our office did receive an application to receive a vacation rental registration certificate on March 30th, 2022. And they were in process to receive this. There was a safety inspection that was conducted on April 18th, 2022 by Code Officer Williams. And then it was found that the property was had an advertisement relating to the vacation rental property. Since the citation was issued, the application was put on hold pending the results of this appeal. I do have the code officer that investigated the property on the call this evening, and I'd like to invite Code Officer Williams to further provide testimony. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and board members. On March 30th, 2022, a vacation rental application was brought into the Department of Special Programs by Mr. Graziano. The application was received and Mr. Graziano was advised that the approximate time for the permit to be issued was 90 days and that we would reach out to him to schedule the safety inspection. The safety inspection was scheduled for the property on April 18th, 2022. The safety inspection was completed and the property passed the inspection. A passing inspection report was submitted to the Department of Special Programs and to Mr. Graziano by email. On the inspection report under inspection notes, the following statement appears. Important message for new applicants. Do not advertise or rent your property short-term until you have received written authorization from the Department of Special Program Compliance. It should also be noted that at the end of the inspection, I went over the next steps with Mr. Graziano and explained the permit would be issued on or about June 30th, 2022, and that he should not advertise or rent short-term until he has received written authorization from the Department of Special Program Compliance. It would come in the form of an email from John Stambeck, and it would include the 4-digit city ID number on it. And that city ID would need to be in all forms of advertisement. On May 26, 2022, a complaint was called into the Department of Special Program Compliance Office, and the caller reported that there was an advertisement that did not include the 4-digit city ID, and he was not sure if the property was legally authorized to rent, and provided the advertisement number of 274-9585 on the website VRBO. On May 29th, I reviewed the VRBO advertisement, which was for 2232 East Hildy Lane, and that's item 4-34 in your packet. The advertisement was missing the required 4-digit city ID as one had not been issued to the property. The property was listed as a 3-bedroom house with a 3-night minimum stay requirement and would accommodate 8 guests. The rental was for the entire property and hosted by Paul Graziano. The property had 0 reviews. On May 29th, 2022 at 1:39 p.m., I sent a booking inquiry to the host, Mr. Graziano, which is item 4-44. Hi, I wanted to see if your home is available June 23rd to 28th. My husband and I, along with my mom, will be heading to Palm Springs for a wedding. Please let me know and I will book it. Thank you, Dave. Approximately 30 minutes later, a response was received from the host, Mr. Graziano. Hi, Dave. Yes, the house is available for those dates. Let us know if you'd like to book it or if you have any questions. Sincerely, Paul. I responded to Mr. Graziano's message with, hi, Paul, thank you. Yes, I would love to book it. Is the pool heat additional? And if so, do you think it will be needed in June? Thanks, Dave. And Mr. Graziano responded, no additional fee for pool heat. Yes, you'll want it in the spa for certain. I responded, perfect. I will book it shortly. Thank you. As I did not book the property on May 29th, on May 30th, Mr. Graziano reached out to me again. Good morning. Let us know if you'd like to book and we will discount your rate since you're staying 5 nights. We are happy to offer that for longer stays. Sincerely, Paul. At that time, I issued administrative citation AB 0388 for operating a vacation rental without the vacation rental certificate. That concludes my report, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Anything further from the city?
Nothing further, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So this time will be opportunity for the board members to ask questions of the city. Why don't we start with Mr. Basili?
No questions.
Mr. Sinclair,
No questions.
Mr. Hedrick,
No questions.
Mr. Moses?
No questions.
All right. Oddly enough, there's a rare occasion. I don't think I have any questions either.
It's the first time.
Yeah. All right. So at this time, I'd like to open the appeal hearing. The appellant is invited to speak for up to 10 minutes. Any members of the public who God, I cannot talk tonight. Any members of the public who desire to speak on this appeal hearing will have up to 3 minutes. If a member of the public chooses to speak on this appeal hearing, the appellant will then be given 2 additional minutes to address their testimony. Board Secretary, can you please begin the public testimony period?
The appellant is present in the room. You are welcome to speak at this time. Please remember that you are under oath and your time will begin when you begin.
Paul Graziano, and thank you, board members, for hearing this appeal. I'm not sure, but I have submitted the appeal. I believe it's been read by the board members. Go over each and every point. But I want to highlight a couple of things. One, I am an officer of the court. I'm an attorney. I don't practice municipality law. I don't do anything relative to real property. I'm a family law practitioner, but I'm an officer of the court. I take my oath seriously. And I've never been in this position where I've had to defend a violation of my own doing or one I'm accountable for. And I raise my hand and tell you, I understand I'm the property owner and I'm accountable. I will tell you that my wife created the account, and in terms of Mr. Williams' comments, and I know my wife is an extension of me. I understand that. The account, as indicated in my appeal paperwork that I submitted, was created by my wife. It was not created with my knowledge. I understand that's attributable to me, and a violation was done because the property had not yet received the certificate number. But when Mr. Williams indicates that Paul Graziano responded, Paul Graziano, that was not myself, the Paul Graziano you're speaking with. I was very, very shocked to receive the violation. Disheartened because of the time, effort, and energy I personally placed into preparing the application, working and speaking with Brian Valley in the Palm Springs office to make sure we had done everything right. I have to specifically dispute Mr. testimony that he gave here moments ago. When I walked, because I personally met him several times during this process, the first of which is on the date he mentioned when my application was submitted. And I met him briefly in passing. I was speaking and working directly with Brian Valley, and I met Mr. Williams briefly on that day. At no time was he present during my conversation with Valley for any substantive time. He literally was walking in and out of the office to go enforcement or what have you. So for him to say that I was told 90 days was processing time on that day is wholly inaccurate. As you'll see in my appeal, the number one thing was, from my perspective, at least a mitigating fact, is this had indicated it was 45, not 90. That was always the processing time when I submitted this application in March. And I have to think someone from the city can confirm when the 45 days became 90 days and when that 45 days was actually changed on the city website to 90 days, because it was not done before I submitted the application on March 30th. No one ever told us 45 was to 90, and no pending applicant who had submitted an application for the vacation rental on a temporary, process, was told that the time had gone from 45 to 90. So I would point out that at the time this violation occurred, we should have received our certificate. Secondarily, and that doesn't, listen, my wife made a mistake. She should have never put an advertisement. She got excited, as at least subsequently explained to me. She was happy we were approved. She was excited. She wanted to see how she could interact with possible guests. And we were never going to rent the property. We didn't, as you could see, rent the property to anyone. The listing was taken down immediately upon learning of this issue. I paid the fine immediately upon learning of this because I couldn't stomach the fact that we even had a violation. So I immediately paid that fine. I also want to dispute respectfully when I with Williams, and I remember that day because my son was there and I was there preparing the home for what I thought would be the inspection of all inspections, to be candid, because I'm naive about this thing. I thought I made sure everything was ready. Mr. Williams was respectful. He was civil. He came in and out of the home in less than 3 minutes performing that inspection, to the extent, and we had no conversation during that time, to the extent that when he walked out of the home, I left the family room after looking at my son, who asked me, "Dad, did we pass?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. He didn't tell me there were any problems," which was great. And I was happy about that. And respectfully, Mr. Williams, I didn't make faces when you were speaking. I would ask for that courtesy to not make faces or noise when I'm speaking. Go outside of the home and ask Mr. Williams, was about to get in his car, "Did I pass? And what do we do?" And he said, "Yes, you passed. You're going to get an email in a day or two." And he did say, "Don't rent this property until you get the certificate." And I'm probably going to say he may have said, "Don't advertise it," but I don't recall that. I acknowledge that's the rules. I know that. I wasn't advertising the property, and it obviously was advertised in violation. That was never our intent. It was not the intent to try to game the system, rent the property before we were able to, or do anything that was improper. It was advertised while this vacation rental packet was pending, and after we had received confirmation that the property had passed inspection, and we were never told 45 days was going to become 90. I reached out to Bryan Valley and I showed in Exhibit A an email. That Exhibit A doesn't have a response. I reached out to city officials, including Bryan Valley and others, and left messages past that time asking about the status of the application and wanting to know when we might receive the certificate, et cetera. There was zero communication from the city in this respect, as I indicated in my appeal. Zero. Bryan Valley never responded back to that email. I never got responses to various messages. This has been a nightmare process, purchasing this home and trying to enjoy it and trying to, participate in the vacation rental process. I want to do that. I want to do it the right way. If I had to resubmit the application after a passage of time, I would do that. We want to do things the right way. It wasn't intentional, but it wasn't as purported. This isn't as it is purported to be in terms of at least the conversation with Mr. Williams, what I was notified, and particularly the 45-day and 90-day time change, because we were always told 45 days as it was printed out on the website. Regardless, we weren't communicated that there was a change. I had zero communication back from the city, and I made great efforts to outreach to confirm where we were at in the process. We're not landlords. We're not investors. We don't, go ahead and VRBO properties. And this was our first foray into this run. I understand why these rules are in place. I understand the jobs all of you have to do in enforcing them, and I understand why the rules are being implemented. But we're not your classic example of trying to game the system. We made a mistake. I can't tell you the consternation this caused under my roof, because this advertisement wasn't done with something I was aware of. Only when I received this violation notice and I thought I was waiting to receive the certificate, and I emailed Mr. Clifford and he said, no, you didn't get a certificate. You've been, got a violation. I can't tell you what that did to me, but it is what it is. I understand that there was a violation. I apologize. I'm sorry that we had to take the time tonight. I appreciate the time of all of you, including yourself, Mr. Williams, because I understand you're just doing your job. I get it. But I want to apologize and just again say it was not intentional. In mitigation, the advertisement was immediately taken down. The fine was immediately paid. And I sit here and just ask for some leniency and some consideration from the board, just kind of pursuant to what I set forth in writing in the appeal, which was submitted. And I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
All right, Mr. Graziano, anything further?
No, I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, so the next time will be set aside for the board to ask questions of the appellant. Why don't we start with Mr. Hedrick?
No questions.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Mr. Moses.
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Sinclair.
No questions.
Mr. Basili. You are muted.
Sorry, no questions.
Okay. I just have maybe one or two. Mr. Graziano. So you said your wife created the ad. Who filled out all the application paperwork?
100%.
Okay. So, and I believe, because I have done this myself, the application paperwork says that you cannot advertise until you have a permit. The city, we've been over this many times, that the city considers advertising the same as operating. Something else I was going to ask you, and I've lost it. All right, I can't think of what the other thing I was going to ask. Any other questions from any board members?
I mean, we're sort of locked in.
Well, if you have a question for the appellant.
Oh, no, no questions
Okay.
for the appellant.
All right, thank you. All right, so then at this time, we will close the public portion of the hearing. And at this time, this will be the time for the board to discuss what we have heard from both sides. And Mr. Hedrick, why don't you start us off?
We actually have no flexibility to do anything, from what I understand. So I don't know what else we can do but uphold the fine and the ban.
Can I ask a question of Ms. Tremblay?
Sure.
Does the 45-day or 90-day provision, is that binding on the city such that passage of that time would result in an automatic granting of the certificate? Or is it just a kind of a guideline?
It's just a guideline. It's not anywhere in the ordinance. I think the city just gives that information to people so they can expect about when they might hear back.
Very important. Thank you very much.
Mr. Basili.
No questions.
Any discussion for the board?
I think we've run into this situation many times before, and so no discussion at all.
Mr. Sinclair?
No, Mr. Basili is correct. We did one of these last month and there's really nothing we can do.
Okay. I guess you both have said what I was thinking is that we just recently had a case like this where, one member of a family is, kind of working with the city, and the other member of a family ends up placing an ad and, puts them in jeopardy of a violation. Mr. Moses, did you have any, other than your question, did you have any?
No, sir.
All right. If no one in the board has anything further, we'll close the discussion. And can I get a motion and a second?
I move we uphold the.
Second.
All right, thank you. Board Secretary, can you call the vote?
Board Member Moses,
Aye.
Board Member Sinclair,
Aye.
Board Member Basili,
Aye.
Board Member Hedrick,
Aye.
Chair Panessa.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
So, Mr. Graziano, thank you for your time and effort. You will get contacted officially from the city. And this does not preclude you from renting long-term, which by the city's definition is at least a month. So, all right, I want to thank everyone for their time and effort on this. So we're going to move on in our agenda to item number 6. And this portion of the meeting is set aside for general comments, announcements, requests of the staff, and other issues of concern from members of this board. Does anybody have anything they would like to discuss?
I've got one.
Okay.
Some time ago, maybe one meeting, but I think more than that. I guess it was one meeting and then we skipped a meeting. I asked the city attorney for an opinion on whether it was in fact possible under California law to penalize a limited partner of a limited corporation for actions done by the corporation. We have in fact so acted, we penalized one. And I'm not sure to this day that I hadn't had a response, so I don't know, but I don't believe we have the authority to do that.
Hi, Mr. Moses. Thank you for your question. Yeah, I was actually, I know that you wanted to speak with me, and I got in contact with the city clerk and requested that you send me the question offline so I could look into it a little bit more, because I didn't quite understand what you were asking. But yeah, if we come across a property that's owned as an LLC or as in a corporation, then the citation is always issued to that LLC or to the corporation, and then that entity is responsible. So, you know, regardless of who shows up to handle the appeal, the city will still issue the administrative citations to those entities that are listed.
So the citation would go to the LLC and not the woman who was a limited partner and was dealing with us.
Right, the citation would be issued to the LLC.
Mr. Hedrick?
Thank you.
Yeah, follow-up question, please. So if XYZ LLC had 4 members, the LLC was in violation. Can member A be, is member A banned for life in the city, or just that XYZ LLC?
I haven't come across that before, but I think that it's the LLC. And that would, yeah, I haven't really looked into that, because yeah, is it the person as a member of that LLC, right? Or the person as an individual? No, I don't think so. But yeah, it has to directly relate to the LLC itself.
So that way, if it's an LLC, the individual can skirt responsibility.
So it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm not clear in my memory, my 87-year-old memory now. A limited partnership has a general partner who is liable for all the acts of the partnership. I don't remember whether a limited liability corporation, an LLC, has a similar participant, a managing partner. Ms. Tremblay may know that right away, or you guys may know it or may not, but that person, if there was one, would be responsible. It's the limited partner or limited, whatever you call them, that would not be responsible, I believe.
So Jill, can you look into that more? Because what you are saying, I think, is kind of contrary to what we have been told in the past. As my understanding is, the city allows limited liability corporations to own a property and therefore get a permit. But the city has always issued those fines to the persons behind that. Can we, I think we probably do need more clarification on that, because in the past, when there has been an LLC, the people behind the LLC have gotten the fine and the ban. So can you clarify that for us?
Yeah, I can look into that. I mean, I know that we've seen, are you saying that sometimes we see an individual name
Yes.
on the citation itself, but then the property is owned by an LLC?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I can,
maybe we want that, and maybe that's the intent, and maybe there needs an amendment to the legislation.
Or it may need a rule, I forget what it's called, where the city manager issues I think it's a rule or a regulation
Yeah.
definition, or what that's called. But yeah, it seems like what we've done and what you're telling us today, I think, are at odds. Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have issued fines and bans to the individuals behind the LLCs.
Yes, that's correct. In fact, I was just going to raise my hand to maybe speak a little bit. And I think the reason why, we have always, when we sign an LLC for operating a vacation rental with a certificate, the LLC is the one that gets the citations, but we do maintain that the members of the LLC are permanently eligible. And I think that might be coming from our definition of an owner that's in our ordinance, where it does state that owners include the limited liability company and the members of such company, insofar as the disclosure requirements pursuant to another section. And that may have been where that started from the time when we started issuing citations under this ordinance, is that those members are included as owners, as an owner is defined as an owner.
If the statute provides that, I believe that's appropriate. If it doesn't provide it, I don't think we can circumvent the limited liability corporation law.
yeah, it does say that, and the members of such company.
Okay, well, that's.
So that answers our
that's
question.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you.
I got one more question.
Go for it.
Recently in the news, a group I happen to know from LA, who have been slow in developing the Ivy, or whatever it's called down here, or the church and the motel, where the planning commission wanted to revoke their rights to proceed, and they appealed it to the city council. Shouldn't that appeal have gone to something called the Administrative Appeals Board?
My sense is no, because we only handle administrative fines. Jill, can you weigh in on that?
So what was the issue? What happened? What went to?
They had been such delay by the purported developer of a project that the planning commission voted to revoke his rights, his approvals. And he appealed that to, I'm just doing, this is not just what I read in the newspaper. He appealed that to the city council, and the city council gave him another 30 days.
So if I may, it was the Orchid Tree project. They appeared before the planning commission to review, to request an extension on their entitlements. And the city council for the last couple of years have put a strict timeline because this project has been long delayed. So the planning commission made the decision to decline an extension in their entitlements, which essentially would kill their project. So the developer then appealed that planning commission's decision to the city council.
Right, and I was just asking why it wouldn't be appealed to us.
It wasn't defined.
Well, but we do things that aren't fine. We bar people from taking certain actions in the future.
My understanding is that appeals of planning commission decisions go to the city council by nature. I'm not sure where that's written, though.
Yeah, it's in the zoning code. I don't know the exact section. But yes, that would be their remedy. To appeal a planning commission action would be to go to city council.
Okay.
Anything else from the board regarding the board? All right, I don't see anything. So Jill, you're back on the hot seat. Any updates from the city attorney?
No, I don't have anything.
All right, thank you. Monique or Cassie, do you have any updates for us from the city's clerk's office?
No updates. Your next meeting is scheduled for October 26th, and so far we have one appeal scheduled for that date.
Thank you. With no other discussion, if somebody wants to make a motion to adjourn.
I move to, we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. I always forget. Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think so.
You'll vote. You're free to go.
All right, thank you, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
your
That's
time
our
and effort.
fastest meeting ever, guys.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for your
Good
time
work,
and effort.
everybody.
Until next month, have a good month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank you. Good night.